Good afternoon. This is Harlem Network News, and I'm Terri Wisdom. And we are grateful and honored to be here to just assure that Harlems of the world, and the world are informed, engaged, and called to action, particularly at such a time as this. We started at the onset of COVID, and we're still here, super critical. And we today, in the midst of everything that's going on, we have an amazing guest with us, and that is in the person of Esther Iverem. She is a journalist, she's an artist, she's an author, host of a radio show and podcast on the ground, Voices of Resistance from the nation's capital. So, super critical. I want everybody to tune in. Please subscribe to our channel, support, donate. We matter, you matter, and independent media matters. So, without further ado, I'm going to just go to our guest, Esther Iverem, and please introduce yourself and share a little bit about what you do so we can kind of put people in context. And then we're going to go hard because we want to make sure that people understand what's going on in this world and in this nation right now. Thank you.
Okay, well, peace, everybody. I'm Esther Iverem. One day, Khadija, you'll get the name right.
Oh, Lord.
Uh,
Esther Iverem. I got
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Peace,
Thank
peace,
you.
everybody. And I am an artist, a writer, and journalist. I produced on the ground Voices of Resistance from the nation's capital for more than 10 years. We're on 27, I don't know, maybe more than that. I always say 3 dozen stations on the Pacifica Radio
All
Network,
right.
the Progressive Radio Network, and that includes WBAI in New York
Yeah,
City.
right here in the
And
New York area. Thank
that's
you.
that's Fridays at 10 a.m., but also here in DC on WPFW and like I said, about 3 dozen other stations. And the name kind of describes it. We're voices of resistance from the nation's capital. We cover protests, speeches, community meetings. We are proudly alternative news. We feel like we're giving the real information that's happening in the world and not what is found on corporate media. And we are very proud to do this work for more than 10 years. As I said, we started in 2014. And aside from that, I've been the author of about 5 books, and I do textile art. So I think of myself as a well-rounded cultural worker, anti-imperialist, seeking liberation here in the belly of the beast, as well as around the world. It's just very important to understand the times that we're living in, and I want to be a part of the fight to make things better, to make things right.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for that, Esther. And it's very, very critical, especially now, because I kind of feel like things are moving so fast
Mm.
every day. And, I was listening to one of the mainstream stations, and there was a comment that was made that this is really, we're in war with Iran, but this is the first war where our whole social media is so prevalent. So everything is feeling like one long day because we're hearing all of this. But my concern is that our constituents, uh, are overwhelmed with survival and keeping up with everything. And a lot of people are checking out because it's just too much. However, this is impactful to them financially. Even if we're talking about troops going somewhere, most of the people that are the troops are Black and brown people. So the aim is to have people understand what's happening and then to decide what they're going to do. I feel like journalism at this point needs information that's speaking truth to power, as
Mhm.
well as needing interpretation. And I don't mean bias interpretation, but just straight out, unedited, so people can, figure out what's happening and maybe need a little assistance because you need background. So you tell me where you want to start. Because I know it was like Venezuela, it was this, is that. Where do you want
Oh,
to start? Thank you.
well, I think we have to just start with Iran.
Okay.
The United States, and there's another radio host that I always hear him say, "I don't say we because I'm not a part of this." So I want to be, I want to be clear that the United States launched, along with Israel, launched an unprovoked war against Iran on February 28th. And I would just basically say what you already know. We don't really have the luxury to check out. This
Mm,
is the most dangerous conflict probably in my lifetime. I mean, I was a baby when the Cuban Missile Crisis occurred, and the world came very close to a nuclear, I don't know, I don't want to say annihilation, but a deadly nuclear strike and war between the United States and, at that time, the Soviet Union. And so many of us who were trying to speak out against the US proxy war against Russia in Ukraine, we spoke out for that same reason because we saw the ratcheting up by um, whether it was Obama, then Trump, then Biden, and now Trump again. We saw all of that leading to the same type of conclusion, ratcheting up toward nuclear war. Now, when you get to Iran, we're coming to the same we're the same point of danger. Um, this war started under the ruse that we wanted to, one of the excuses was that we wanted to make sure, here we go with that we again. The US wanted to make sure
right.
that
Yes.
the Iran did not have a nuclear weapon. Well, the Iran has always stated for decades now it didn't want a nuclear weapon. The Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who they murdered, he had a fatwa against nuclear weapons.
Mm,
When people around him wanted Iran to get a nuclear weapon because they saw that as the only thing that would protect them from the predations of the United States and Israel. So
got to bring that in.
right.
Whew.
And so, but he resisted that all those decades. So what they've done in murdering him, and so much of the Iranian leadership that was in place is that they've eliminated the very people who were probably more what they call moderates and who were
Okay.
trying to negotiate with the United States. And what did it get them? They negotiated last year and they were attacked in the middle of negotiations. They negotiated this year and they were attacked again by the US, by Israel in the middle of negotiations, right? These are the people who responded in a relatively light way after General Soleimani, the leader of their IRGC, was murdered by the US in a drone by the Trump administration, which started this decade. People think of COVID starting 2020 and everything that happened with George Floyd. That year started with the assassination of Soleimani by Trump. And everyone thought at that point, wow, we're really going to go through it now. Iran is going to take the gloves off, but they didn't. Now,
Mm,
finally, in
interesting.
2026, after being attacked for the third time, I want to count as the first time, the Iraq-Iran war that the U.S. backed Iraq in fighting them and using chemical weapons against Iran in the last century. So, anyway, what I'm trying to say is that we don't really have luxury to check out. It's not only impacting our gas prices, but we have to think of this as people of the descendants of the global South, as Africans, as Latinx people, as
Mhm.
Asian people. We have to look at this as a anti-imperialist war. This is a war for not only the sake of the global South, people in Africa, Asia, and in Latin America, but it's really a war for the survival of humanity. No one wants to see American young men and women go somewhere and fight and die. But you know something? They should not be sent there anyway. They should not be sent there for a war, which even Trump's allies, these conservative and right-wing commentators,
Absolutely.
even they're saying this is being fought for Israel. You
Yeah.
know,
Okay. Well, thank you for bringing that up. The Israel situation, the connection between the U.S. and Israel.
yeah.
Where does that fit in this war? And from your purview, what do you see and what is?
Well, gosh, it
Hard question.
that's no, it's kind of a little complex question, but it's in a way it's not. Because when you look at the imperialist domination of what we call the Middle East, which is really West Asia, you
Mhm. And when
understand.
you say, I'm going to just stop you a little bit. When you say imperialist domination, break that down because I want everybody to kind of understand what we're really talking about so they get it.
Yeah, so when I talk about imperialist domination, I'm talking about the capitalist economy that we live under
Okay. Yes.
and the capitalist economy going global,
Hmm.
being made global with its tentacles all over the world, including in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America. And so imperialism is the highest stage of capitalism, right? So
Okay.
I hope that helps because at
Yes, it
this
does.
point, a
Thank you
lot
so
of
much.
us know what it is to live under capitalism. There's a little note here. Let me see. Okay, let me move that. I don't think that that is for me. It's something about AI, but
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Gotcha.
okay.
Okay. I got you.
Yeah. So when I say that there's this imperialist domination of this region, gosh, we can go back centuries, but let's just start with the Balfour Declaration made by Lord Balfour in England, uh, in at the beginning of the last century. Okay, and this created a home for Zionism, created a home for Jews in what they wanted to rename as Israel, which was Palestine. It had always been Palestine, okay? And so, starting with that, you had this waves after waves of Zionists settling in Israel, leading to what they call the Nakba in 1946, or leading up to 1946, and the establishment through through genocide, through murder, through forced relocation, the establishment of the state of Israel. So when you look at uh, what we call the Middle East right now, a lot of these countries and what's been set up there now was the result of these imperialist wars after World War One and World War Two. And so
Okay.
with the breakup of the Ottoman Empire, you have all these different little countries created that were colonial appendages of either the UK, France, mainly, okay, all these other countries that tried to have a foothold in terms of military bases and the control of the resources, mainly oil, of this region. Okay, so even when you look at Iran, a lot of people will know that in the 1950s, the U.S. and the UK engineered the coup and overthrow and murder, really, of the democratically elected socialist president of Iran, Dr. Mossadegh, right? And
Thank
ever
thank you for the background. Very
Yes,
important.
and the implement and the installation of this brutal dictator known as the Shah Pahlavi. All right. And so when the current Islamic Republic overthrew the Shah in the 70s, people might remember that. People might remember the hostage, the Iranian hostages and all that. Well,
Yes.
that's what came out of all that because they overthrew this brutal dictator that was murdering their people. They he had this really barbaric like police um or military paramilitary group that I think it was called the Savak or something.
Okay. Thank
Well,
you.
correct me if I'm wrong. And they just basically had a fascist regime that was, jailing people, torturing people, assassinating people. And so the Islamic Republic was founded after they threw this Shah out. And so ever since then, ever since their guy got thrown out, the US, the UK, and everybody else um they have been oh, and I left out a very important thing.
Okay.
They killed Dr. Mossadegh because he nationalized their oil. That's very key. This socialist
Okay.
president of Iran um, nationalized their oil and what was British petroleum, right? Them controlling this nation's oil and natural resources became the property of the Iranian people. All right.
Yes.
So that's
Thank you.
why they got rid of him. All right. And then, okay, then they had a puppet there, the Shah, for what, more than 20 years. And then they overthrew the Shah.
Stop.
The current Islamic Republic was established at that after that. And ever since then, they've hated Iran, right? And they've done everything to destabilize Iran. And when I say they, the US, along with Israel, along with the UK, to destabilize Iran. But Iran, um, uh, formerly known as Persia, the Persian people, this is an ancient civilization.
And a
Um,
large civilization.
Large ancient civilization, and we don't even have time to get into the destruction of or the attempted destruction of so many of the antiquities and beautiful things there in this barbaric attack on the country. But the point is that this society has a highly educated population. They have universities. They have a overwhelming a wealth of PhDs and scientists. They've developed all types um, of not only nuclear uh, science, which they're allowed to have. I mean, they're allowed to have nuclear capability to do civilian infrastructure, right? And
Okay.
so U.S. has even tried to get that away from them. Israel has killed numerous Iranian scientists. Okay, now. Um, in addition to that, their scientists have developed a tremendous ballistic missile capability, right? And and so it was ridiculous for any country, given the threats that Iran has had over the decades, to ask them to give up their ballistic missiles. It's like, and you see through this war, this is what's allowing them to fight back. So it's like, give me your ability to fight back. Get rid of that. And that's what I want to happen, right? That's crazy. That's absolute nuts. So, um, that's kind of in a nutshell when I talk about the imperialist control over this area, this region. And you see that all these countries that have they're not even countries. I don't know. Some of them, these little tiny oil monarchies that control oil and feed it to Europe and their former colonial masters. Um, they have held U.S. military bases, and now 3 weeks in, most of those military bases have been destroyed. And a lot of people don't know that for the first time since the U.S. illegally invaded Iraq, was it 2003?
Yeah,
The U.S.
approximately.
and the Iraq, after we murdered Soleimani and murdered a leading Iraqi military that same during that same strike um in 2020, Iran asked us to leave. They said,
Mhm.
please leave. Their legislature, which is filled with a lot of people who are pro-US, they voted for the US to leave. And Trump said, no, we're not going. So now, after the much lauded green zone in Iraq in Baghdad has been bombed, and
And when we say green zone, break that down because we're
so
trying
you
to.
remember during the because that was actually the name of a movie, right? So during the Iraq War, when the U.S. Uh, during the U.S. invasion of Iraq and the destruction of that country, with more than 1 million Iraqis murdered during that time, the U.S. set up a massive area in what I understand is really the best area of Baghdad in terms of the beauty,
Okay.
which maybe which s- you know is so much was destroyed in Iraq. I'm just shaking my head and thinking back about all the antiquities, in this place that was where some of the first human writing, some of the first evidence of human civilization existed. Those things were ransacked, stolen, destroyed, but the Green Zone was the area where the U.S. set up the base, our embassy, the place where Americans lived, basically. And
Okay.
so that has been deserted, destroyed, from what I understand. It's not necessarily even from by Iran, but by the Iraqi militia. There are people who are fighting for their liberation and their to end the occupation of their country, and they have been fighting what remains of their American presence there. But a lot of people don't realize that through this war, Iraq is finally free of Americans. And even after being asked to leave, you know, several times, but definitely I remember that vote after Soleimani was murdered and the Iraqi uh, senior military were also murdered in that missile strike. They
Mhm.
asked us to leave, and Trump said no. It's kind of like, somebody in your house, tearing up, and you say, look,
Right.
you gotta go.
You gotta go. You
You
gotta
gotta
go. So
go.
this is Iraq, but where are we? Because there was a bunch of conversation, and this is coming from Donald Trump, about Iran, saying that, he wanted to rev up the people because the people don't want the Ayatollah there. And, what is that all about? Because there's Iraq who was like, get out of our house. And then there's Iran where the war, this recent war was started. And, Donald Trump is saying, well, there's many people who want to overthrow him. And we're hoping that they overthrow their government and come on over our way. This is going to be easy. What is that about? Break that down.
Well,
Because,
it's really interesting because I have to prepare for this week's show. Like every month, I do a media segment with John Jeter. He's a former. We were both at the Washington Post together,
oh,
and so we kind of, we do this monthly media segment. I mean, I think it helps keep both of us sane because there's so much misinformation and media spin, and corporate media really doesn't do its job. And one of the ways it didn't do its job is this whole okay, so back in January, there were these so-called, I guess I should start before that because Scott Bessent, Trump's Treasury Secretary, has, or is it Commerce, one of those money related secretaries,
mhm,
admitted that the US had helped to engineer a currency crisis in Iran. And so things became very expensive. There was a run on the banks. People couldn't buy anything. It was just really hard time. So there was a natural protests, indigenous protests, grassroots protests among people because of the economic hardship, right? But just like in Ukraine, this grassroots effort was infiltrated by in Iran, in the case of Iran, by Mossad agents. Uh, you had the a former CIA director get on TV saying that, oh yeah, Mossad is out there in the streets marching with the people. I mean, those crazy comments. Like,
Mm.
but
Wow.
anyway,
Break
what?
down Mossad because we want to make sure.
Oh, okay. This is
Oh,
Israeli spy,
okay.
Israeli version of the CIA, spy, military, violent agency. Um, and so, what was a legitimate peaceful protest quickly became violent. You had people shooting uh, just civilians, firehouses, ambulances being firebombed.
Mm.
Um, and so people realized that, okay, this is something else. And just like in the US fomented what became a really violent insurrection in Ukraine that led to the overthrow of that democratically elected president, it was obvious that a mixture of U.S. and Israeli meddling plus this economic sabotage was intent on creating a situation where there would be a government overthrown in Iran. Okay,
And it
Iran.
was openly stated. So
It
that's,
was. I mean, not at the time. Like people were
yeah, that,
bragging about
yeah,
it. It was like,
openly stated.
okay,
Yeah.
because they thought it was going to be successful. But I think with Iran had enough intelligence, they were able to figure out how they were doing this, and they were doing it a lot. The people controlling it were outside the country, and they realized that by shutting down the internet, they could tamp down these people who were out wilding out, the creating violence in the communities.
Mhm.
And in addition to the internet, they found out that a lot of people were communicating via Starlink. I guess that's is that the Elon Musk thing, the Starlink, okay?
Okay.
And so by locating these Starlink terminals and
Mhm.
getting rid of them, they were able to get rid of this uh these
The
spies.
imitators. Yeah.
Yeah, people creating
Havoc.
rampaging through the country. All right. So when Trump the story that the United States population received is what you just said. That there was an uprising and that these people were going to overthrow this government. They didn't want him anymore. But that
Mhm.
wasn't true, right? And the more that people saw what was happening and how they were being manipulated, they came out in mass to show their support for the country, to for the leadership and the government, and that kind of things quieted down quite a bit. Uh,
Okay.
the despite what despite the sabotage last year with the U.S. and Israel, is Iran agreed to go into negotiations with them after they managed to get rid of all these people rampaging through the country, and they were, according to um, the facilitator from Oman, who was, carrying on these negotiations between Iran and the U.S. There was significant progress made to the point where he could not believe that Iran was so ready to just basically, hey, look, you already know we don't want a nuclear bomb. I mean, at the point that they were attacked again by the US and Israel, they had apparently made significant concessions to say, hey, look, um,
Let's save the world.
we don't, we don't need to go to war. And so while they were still waiting to go back to negotiations that Monday, Israel and the US attacked them that Saturday. So that's that's my take on this whole thing about if there was an uprising and the people wanted to get rid of their government.
Not the case at all. And now
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
destruction, there's war. Where does Israel fit in this? What are they trying to do? What in your view do you see as the connection between the US and Israel? Obviously, this didn't just begin with Trump, but now he's taking it to another space.
Wow. Well, it's a lot to talk about the relationship between the US and Israel, but we can shorthand this, that's right, shorthand this by saying that the even Trump's supporters, even people who are kind of in his corner, who have been his backers, are criticizing the relationship between the US and Israel in regards to this conflict. They're saying even Joe Kent, one of Trump's national security officials, resigned, saying that he did not support this war and that Trump was dragged into this war by Israel and that we were fighting this war for Israel. So, without giving a whole lot of background, let's just say at this state of things here in 2026, this whole, some people call Israel the 51st state, this whole relationship between the US and Israel, which has functioned as this unsinkable, what they call it, unsinkable aircraft carrier in the Middle East to carry out US hegemony in that area. It's coming to the end of the road. I mean, one of Iran's stipulations for ending this is that all US bases have to leave. That they can no longer be surrounded by 6 or 7 US bases in these little Gulf monarchies that are just, oil. They want to call Russia a gas station. What do they call it? Just a gas station or something like that. But a lot of these countries are just oil wells, right? They're
Okay.
no longer oil wells in a U.S. military bases. So they don't want to be surrounded by these U.S. bases. They want a ceasefire that will be permanent. They're trying to create enough deterrence so that Israel does not and the US don't feel like they can come back again for another bite at the apple in a year and attack them again. They want reparations. That's a
Yes,
word
I,
that a
I
lot
heard
of
that.
your
Reparations.
audience will know. They want
Repar-
reparations for
reparations. Powerful.
all the damage, for
Mhm.
these decades of sanctions, illegal sanctions, for the deaths of upwards of 2,000 people now, including, about the 175 people killed at an elementary school, mostly young girls.
Yes.
This is a horror. This is a atrocity, you know, and they want reparations for uh, all that they have endured at the hands of this imperialist monster.
Okay. And we're at a stalemate because what does the US want? What are they saying? That came out today that, you know, they're giving their
Yeah, the last
demand.
thing I heard was something like 15 points. Well, these are things that Iran has already said that they will not do, right? So it's almost like if the US really wants to end the war, they're going to have to either come to Iran's demands
Mhm.
or they'll have to keep fighting. And the problem is that the missile interceptors, the capability of the US to really keep going in this war is debatable. They're supposedly, at the point that we're talking here on Wednesday, I know it's going to air on Thursday.
Yes,
In the
absolutely.
next in the next few days, in
Mhm.
the next few days, we'll know. Some people are saying that's when we'll know when the war will start because there are at least 2,500 U.S. military on their way to the
that are
region,
on the way. Yes,
right?
absolutely.
There are 50,000 already in the region. And so if Trump, against all advice, is going to attempt some type of ground landing of U.S. military, we might be, in a few days, in a matter of days, looking at uh, a different phase of this war.
Yeah. So
Hopefully,
we're in a world of a lot of trouble, and I've been hearing a lot of comparatives to what happened in Vietnam,
yes,
because Iran is a big country, and it's not a country that we know. They know their terrain. We don't
yes,
know.
yes.
So there's a lot to think about, a lot to consider. But what are your thoughts in terms of how our public officials on the federal level are addressing this? Because there's a lot of conversation, but what action can or should be taken? Because the bottom line is all of this is taxpayers' dollars. And it appears through this whole situation, even pumping up Wall Street here and there, Donald Trump and the family are making money. So we, they're just making money, so where are we, the people, and what can we do? What should we do? Because I just hear our senators, our congresspeople, I hear a lot of conversation and talk about legal this and legal that, but this horse is already out the gate. So to bring it back, legal stuff takes a long time. So what action? What
Well,
action?
I would start. Hey, I know when we're going to air. Look, this Saturday, March 28th is No King's Day. And there's going to be some large anti-war contingents in that march.
Hmm.
I know the No Kings marches are criticized because they don't seem to have any demands. They don't, but within that big march, there are many people who have demands. And if you
Okay.
find if you find in your city, I know if you find the Answer Coalition contingent, that stands for Act Now to Stop War and End Racism. So I'll
Okay.
be out there with the Answer Coalition on Saturday.
I
So
hear you.
my first answer to you is that we have to stay in the streets. We have to get out on the streets and say no to this war, no to our tax dollars being used to like murder children and
Hmm.
to bomb civilians and to invade countries that did not do anything to us. You know,
Hmm.
uh, when I was making some notes before we started talking, I just, the first thing I wrote was that we are in a time that I've never experienced in my lifetime. And it's up to us to really turn the ship around. When you look at the Democrats, they're just trying to take back the House, and maybe and they should, but you also see a lot of the leadership. They're not really coming out against the war. They're doing a lot of things to prevent war resolutions from going through that would give the people more power against what the president is doing. So we have to understand that many of them, they have the same imperialist attitudes
Hmm.
toward Iran, toward the people of Palestine, toward the people of Lebanon, toward the region in general. They have the same attitudes, and they believe, and they would do the same thing there. That just the same way that they were supporting the war, the proxy war against Russia in Ukraine. So it's up to the people. We have to get out to this Saturday, March 28th. And whenever any marches happen after that, whenever we can reach out to our elected officials and say, I don't want this war. I don't want my tax dollars used for this war. What is your stance on this? Because if you're supporting this, I'm not going to vote for you. I'm not going to vote for
I
you.
hear you.
And I, you know, if we all have to go third party, whatever, we have to stop this endless wars. A lot of people either voted for Trump or did not vote for his opponent because Trump said that he was not going to get us into
Right. And he's
any
absolutely done that.
wars. And here we are. Here we are. In what could be what some analysts are saying, the war that will end this empire. Some people are
Okay.
saying that.
No, I hear you. I've heard it, and it's a reality. But I just implore our public officials to stand up, and stop talking, because there's a lot of loud talking, as I say, talking loud and saying nothing. They
Hmm.
got to stand,
Right.
and deferring to legal things. Nothing that is legal that's happening here right now.
Hmm.
And by the time you try to roll that back, we're going to wind down, and that's because there's a lot of information, and I want
Yeah.
people to be able to process it. But
We didn't even get to Venezuela or Cuba
yes, yeah.
or
So quickly before we go, you
my
got
heartache,
you
the
can't.
people
I
still
know it's
being
not.
bombed in these small boats. I mean, just
Yeah,
so much, so much. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So the Venezuela thing, just three lines. What about that? What about
Well,
that?
I want President Maduro and his wife, first combatant Celia Flores. I want them released from prison. Why are they in prison in New York? I
Mhm.
think that their trial, so-called trial, was supposed to start this month. What is happening with that? So, the Venezuelan people, their government is intact. They suffered a tremendous blow, more than 100 people killed, including President Maduro's complete bodyguard security contingent from Cuba.
Mm, mm,
And they are, you know, there is controversy. There are different people who feel differently that Delcy Rodriguez is not upholding the Bolivarian Revolution. But
mm.
I say give her time. She's still in power. The Chavistas are still in power, and that's what's important. And if we know anything about our history, we know that sometimes people have to take a few steps back so they can go forward. And I'm not ready to
Okay.
throw them overboard like they have um what do you call it? Um sabotage the revolution or something, right? That
Okay. Let's
and
see.
the other thing that we're looking at in this hemisphere, of course, is Cuba. The same thing, and we're covering on the show the contingents that have gone, and a lot of them are coming back now from the flotilla of humanitarian aid to Cuba, bringing not only food and medicine but solar panels. China sent solar panels, electric cars. Russia said they were sending a tanker of oil. I keep waiting for that tanker. I don't know where it is
Okay.
on the waters or whatever, but apparently there was some oil on the way or getting loaded. I don't know. But the whole world is rooting for Cuba and standing up for its right to be a sovereign country and out of the grasp of Trump or Rubio and the Miami Mafia Gusano movement. So just, you know, we are going back to your beginning. We can't check out. We are here in the sweep of history. We have to be citizens of the world to understand that we here in the belly of the beast can make a difference in terms of what this country does because we're impacting the whole world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well
Mm.
said. A good place to stop. I would just implore, or we have to figure out, because obviously there's a social media blitz on our young people, and we saw that today. But it's very important because the difference of now and Vietnam was that it was the young people that jumped in the movement, you know. So we need more young people to understand. And one of the things that needs to be understood is the fact that really we're in a draft. We have
Yes,
the special
that's right.
services. And when you go and apply for a job, because I had a young man who was applying for a job with like summer youth here in New York City, and you can't do that unless you have, saying that you're going to sign up for the special services, or you already have. You can't even put in a FAFSA, the college, financial application uh,
Right.
without signing off on that
Interesting.
special services.
Interesting. That's
And
very important.
yeah,
That's
and the
very
fact
important.
of the matter is that even if you're not getting financial aid or you don't need it, you can't, which is very few people, you can't even apply to any college unless you have a FAFSA. You can't get a driver's license
Mm.
unless you have done,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, the FAFSA,
they want
special
our young
services.
people to put our young people out there on the front
So
line to go
understand
to
that.
these dangerous, illegal wars. And we have to say, yeah, we have to say, hell no, we won't go. And our children aren't going, our grandchildren aren't going, and that's what people said. Send your son. Send your child. All you people who are trying to send other people's children, send your children. Then it would stop.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a lot, but we got to talk about it. We can't be quiet. We can't stand back. And I'm hearing, even little snippets on mainstream media where people are understanding that our tax dollars are going towards this. This is
Right.
our money. It's impacting us
Billions of dollars.
billions of
I don't
dollars,
have the
and
figures right
people
now.
can't,
Just 4 weeks.
we can't get our health care, but money can go
Exactly.
out to the
Exactly.
poor.
Exactly.
So, these are things that are realities, and we've got to continue to stand. So
And just on that one point, and I know that we're wrapping up, but you know, when it comes to um, this whole thing about, being in the military or being a police officer or being whatever, what's happened when you really look at it, so many jobs have been eliminated other than either going into police, this ICE, force where
we
they
didn't even touch ice.
50,000. I know we didn't even have time, but $50,000 offering. And every time, now Trump is trying to put the ICE at airports, and every picture I see of the
They're
ICE at
at the
airports is
airport.
black and brown people, and I'm like, oh my God. But then I understand because they're putting us in a situation where there are no other jobs.
Yeah.
And they've cut so many people in. I've covered a lot of the federal workers
Mhm.
who've been fired, laid off illegally, and so much of the federal workforce has been eliminated. Jobs that are really important jobs for human needs in our country have been eliminated. But they have all these jobs over here where they're abusing, killing people, including American citizens. And and so when this comes up about the draft or whatever, I want people to know there is conscientious objection. You do not have to go and fight a war um that you don't believe in. And there are, from what I understand, um uh, the phones are ringing off the hook from these organizations that take the application from people for conscientious objection. So
Okay.
let's definitely leave people with that information. Um, if we don't have it now, maybe we can put it up on the screen,
Absolutely.
after,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
or in the comments
Yeah,
for.
in the comments, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this is just the beginning. And as other shows have their political analysts, I know that you're knowledgeable. I know you do this religiously every Friday and more, and 10 years, and, strong journalistic background. But it's important, people like you, your show, and for me, it's truly about breaking it down so that anybody walking on the street can understand it.
Right.
It's very important and understand, yes, this has to do with you. Okay.
Yeah.
As I say, the buck stops here. This has to do with you. ICE is picking up people, taking teenagers' cell phones. And I heard today a teenager testifying that ICE picked him up, took his cell phone, and actually went and sold his cell phone for $200. So what in this world are we talking about? So
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
yeah, and we didn't
yeah,
even really get to, because this is Women's History Month. We didn't even
yes,
really get
yes.
to
And
that.
this is a
There-
part of our
Yeah.
rollout, till the end of March. So I'm glad that we started with you, a strong woman, making sure that we're involved. So I cut you off. So Women's History
No,
Month,
I just wanted to make that connection from ICE to what
absolutely.
we started with, because women are being abused in detention centers, in this whole situation where you have uh, of immigrant women, not protected, immigrant girls not protected. I keep seeing posts, and I would have to look into it. But teenagers winding up pregnant in
Mm,
detention centers.
wow.
You know, and this is also the 27th March 24th of this year. Um, Marked 27 years since the US and NATO invasion and breakup of Yugoslavia. And I bring that up because when I was looking at it, this is what they want to do with Iran. They want to break up Iran into like little countries, like Yugoslavia was broken up into like maybe five different countries. All right.
Wow.
They want to break up Iran into uh different, they want to balkanize it, that's the word, right? Kurdish part, and this part, that part, right there.
Pakistan.
But
So,
Iran is not going to let that happen, right? But the other thing that happened in Yugoslavia, which is related to me, to Women's History Month, is that uh it started like every war, but in particular, that war started this major drug trafficking out of Kosovo and Albania. And the other
mm,
thing was traffic was women and girls.
mm,
Okay.
yes.
And if you look at after the Iraq War, after the US invasion of Iraq, well, what happened to Iraqi women? Okay. And uh in the case of Yugoslavia, um, think about the connection between all these Eastern European women and girls and the Epstein issue.
Okay. Okay. We got a lot
Okay.
of amphitheaters going on.
Yeah, yeah.
We
There's
got
a
a
lot
lot of
going on.
amphitheaters
So
going on.
we have
Yeah.
a lot we can keep talking about, but I just want to leave that note for Women's History Month to think about all the women in these war zones, the girls killed in the school in Manab in Iran, the women of Iran, Gaza, Lebanon, the women in Sudan, in Congo, where it's just like no one talks about, the rape atrocity that is just, it's like people say it so easily that, these hundreds of women were raped, whatever. And it's like, oh, okay, let's just turn away. Let's not think about that. Let's not report on that. And
No.
so
Very important. Thank you.
we definitely want to leave that note for Women's History Month. And I know we've gone far afield, but it's all the same. It's all the
Yeah,
same.
it is all the same, and it's a big circle, and we need to understand that. And the gratitude is that we can see and have a lot more connection to what is happening in the world. I got
Yes.
to research this, but I understand that India right now is under siege. They're having some very significant oil and gas shortages where some people are having to work from home, and we're not seeing that on our mainstream media. There are people that I'm speaking with that are in India, and that's what they're saying. So, got to research that.
That's
But
gonna that's gonna be all over
yeah,
now,
but
because
the
the Strait of
impact
Hormuz
is great,
is
and they have a
is
huge population. So,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so that's it. So, please share with us before you leave how
Mhm.
people can get in touch with you, how they can follow your show, how they can support you, because that's
Oh
very
yeah.
important. Where can they find you?
Okay. Yeah. So wherever people are listening and watching from, we maintain a website called onthegroundshow.org. And you can go to the website and you can listen to all of our shows there. But if you listen to podcasts, our podcast is On the Ground with Esther Iverem. And there's a green sign, a green and beige sign that says On the Ground, like a protest sign, right?
Okay.
And if you go to Android, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, all those platforms, it's On the Ground with Esther Iverem, and it's a green and beige sign. So the website, podcast, and if you're in a radio station with a Pacifica radio station, if you're in
Mhm.
an area with a Pacifica radio station, we are on 27 um, or 3 dozen Pacifica radio stations,
Okay.
and in DC, that's WPFW 89.3, and in New York is WBAI 90.1. Is it?
95.
I don't.
95.1, I believe.
And so those are some of the ways. And if you'd like to support the show, you can do it on the website. You can go onto Patreon, and we certainly appreciate it. We're all volunteer run and supported. Yeah.
Yeah, in most instances, and once again, we're grateful for technology because we're in the technical revolution, as my daughter says. We had an industrial one, but this is a technical one, and it has allowed us to be able to get on these platforms. But we
Right.
still need support. Harlem Network News, reach out to us. You can call us directly at 646-261-5397, harlemnetworknews.org.com, all of those. And we're vowing this year to take some giant steps so that we can reach out to more people, get more information going, get donations, and really, as I stated in the beginning, to assure that, quote, Harlem, and that's a quote, and the Harlems of the world, which is us, and the world understands what's going on because we have to tell our own stories. But we must be informed, engaged, and call to action. And thank you so much, Esther. I know the last time that you were on, it was a while ago. We had a lot of people call in, and they were felt like they were so informed. So we
Oh,
appreciate that.
great. I'm so
Yeah,
glad
we
to hear
appreciate
that.
it.
I'm so glad to
Yes.
hear that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to work on this. You're our political analyst at this point.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm honored. I'm
One
honored.
of So, okay, all right. So, thank you so much, and for whatever backward, never, and of course, up ye mighty race, and that includes
All
many people,
right. Great.
all
Peace.
of those conscious people, absolutely. And great book. I'm going to be talking more about it, but it's the Peacemaker. The former Secretary General's grandson wrote a book, Peacemaker, about Utan, and it's powerful and timely for what we need right now. So,
Yep.
yeah. So, okay. So, have a
Great.
great, great day and blessings.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Appreciate you. Good. Peace.